Hey everyone, I have a question for you. Can betrayal be an act of love? That is what we will explore today, as during the Clone Wars, that was a question that lingered heavily on a clone sergeant named Slick. Slick, early on, was in the destructive conflict becoming disillusioned with the Jedi. As you know, like all the rest of his clone brothers, Slick was a genetic copy of the cunning and deadly Jango Fett. But unlike the majority of the troops, the Kaminoan cloners had not quite successfully been able to breed out all of the infamous bounty hunter's rebellious personality and defiant traits from the embittered clone. So, as he was present at the first Battle of Geonosis, Slick was one of the numerous original batches of clones to enter the war, and was part of the carnage that sparked the Clone Wars to begin with. There, he fought alongside his fellow engineered soldiers in the Grand Army of the Republic, but was severely disappointed at what he perceived as the Jedi's ineffectual leadership and indifference towards him and his brothers, his family. From there, eventually his disdain steadily grew to hate, as he believed the Jedi considered himself and the other clones to be nothing but slaves and cannon fodder to be used in a war where the clones were bred to fight but never asked to fight. They were never really given a choice. So seeing the Jedi as slavers instead of saviors, Slick began to plot against them and the Republic. However, it was first at the Siege of Christophsis, where the Republic and the Jedi had dispatched a contingent of clones to liberate the Outer Rim planet from the Confederacy of Independent Systems, or in other words, the Separatists. This was when Slick decided to finally act. Led by Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, once they reached surface side after breaking a massive Separatist blockade around the planet, the clone troopers were positioned inside two tall towers in the capital city, to give the Republic forces an advantage over Count Dooku's encroaching battle droids. With Skywalker and his trusted clone commander, Captain Rex, in the North Tower, Slick stood with Commander Cody and General Obi-Wan Kenobi at the South Tower. What the two Jedi and the other clone troopers didn't know was that the turncoat clone sergeant had come to believe that the only way to save and protect his fellow clones was to bring the war to a quick and swift end. And that could only come about with the Jedi's utter defeat. So Slick had in secret contacted Count Dooku's dark side assassin and Sith acolyte, the powerful Asajj Ventress, and spilled the beans on the Republic's strategy and tactics. Then, knowing that Anakin and Obi-Wan were planning in advance, the droid army was able to surprise and overwhelm Kenobi's forces in the South Tower. Anakin quickly brought in his own soldiers from the North Tower to help reinforce his friends and Master's men. The battle droids still won that day, giving the Republic and the Jedi no choice but to evacuate and return to their Christophsis base of operations. Slick, whose treason still remained undiscovered, returned with them. As a sergeant, he was the leader of his own unit of clones, who he personally considered to be the best of the best that the Republic had to offer. But as they headed to the base's mess hall and barracks, Slick carefully started for the command center and secretly left his active comlink there, so he could eavesdrop on whatever Anakin, Obi-Wan, and their clone commanders were planning next. Simple but effective, and it worked. Slick was able to overhear them discussing the possibility of a spy in their ranks, and given how disastrous their defeat had been, of course. So Skywalker and Kenobi, as part of their investigation, planned to sneak into the Separatists' own Christophsis headquarters, while Cody and Rex would stay at the Republic base and try to find the spy. As the two iconic Jedi left on their mission, it didn't take long for Cody to find the comlink, while Rex spotted Slick in a nearby hallway. But because the two identical-looking men didn't know each other personally, Slick was able to shake Rex by running into the base's mess hall and disappearing into a crowd of clone troopers all with the same face. Though Rex and Cody were not able to distinguish him from their other brothers, as difficult and shocking as it was for them to accept the idea that a clone trooper could turn on the Republic and the Jedi, they now knew that they had a spy, and that this spy had to be one of their own. But as long as they didn't know who, Slick was able to stay one step ahead of them and warn Ventress that Anakin and Obi-Wan were heading her way. However, Slick, in his rush, had made a critical blunder. The computer terminal he used to contact the Separatists was stationed near his own squad's barracks, and it didn't take long for Rex and Cody to trace the transmission back to it. When they questioned Slick, he naturally pretended to be shocked and outraged at the idea that any clone could be a spy, let alone anyone on his team. Nevertheless, the two clone leaders had Slick's team assemble in the barracks and questioned them about their actions during the failed operation in the city. All but one checked out. A trooper named Chopper claimed to have been in the mess hall with his fellow squad, but that was contradicted by one of his brothers, who remembers seeing him arrive late. As his story started to break apart and afraid they might think he was the spy, Chopper relented and confessed that he was in violation of Republic military protocol because he had secretly been collecting the fingers of battle droids for a necklace that he was making as a type of war trophy, which really reminds me of Universal Soldier. So a serious infraction here, but far from treason. Cody and Rex were clearly dubious about Chopper's claims, so seeing an opportunity to derail any suspicion off himself and use Chopper as his fall guy, Slick feigned concern for the soldier under his command by assuring the trooper that he would receive a fair and impartial investigation once Skywalker and Kenobi returned from the Separatist headquarters. But the moment those words left his mouth, Slick had exposed himself as the true spy. Aside from Cody and Rex, no one knew that the two legendary Jedi had left. No one, that is, except whoever was eavesdropping on them with their comlink, meaning it could only be Slick. Exposed and surrounded, Slick forced his way through the barracks and fled, with Cody and Rex hot on his heels. Knowing they were following a signal from his utility belt, which contained a thermal detonator, and hoping to lure his pursuers into a trap, Slick bolted for a gunship, but instead of trying to take off, he placed his utility belt by the military transport to make Rex and Cody think he was planning to escape. Then when the two elite clone officers arrived and realized Slick wasn't there, they barely managed to escape the thermal explosion, which wiped out not only the gunship, but the entire base's weapon depot, including nearby AT-TE walkers, and shut down the power throughout. In the mix of all this chaos he had created and tried to avoid capture, Slick crawled through the air vents until he was above the base's command center. After listening in on another conversation between Cody and Rex, who were the only ones present, the rogue sergeant waited for Rex to leave before he descended from the ventilation shaft and attacked the seemingly lone Commander Cody. As brother clashed against brother, Rex immediately came to Cody's defense. Both clone officers knew the whole time that Slick had been listening in on them, so realizing that his ambush had turned into a trap instead, Slick wasn't planning to go out without a fight. Before the inevitable knockout punch from Cody finally put an end to it, Slick hanged in long enough to explain that he had betrayed them, not for greed or power, but to free every clone from what he considered slavery to the Republic. But his cries fell on deaf ears even after Anakin and Obi-Wan returned from the Separatist headquarters. Slick scolded them both about the entire Jedi Order for using the clones as their own personal slave force, and therefore he had no choice but to become a spy, to protect his brothers from them and the Republic. He proclaimed he had betrayed his brothers because he loved them, but Cody let the air out of that logic when he pointed out that if Slick cared for his fellow clones as much as he claimed, then he would never have put their lives at risk in the first place. After the Battle of Christophsis was ultimately won by the Republic, what had happened to Slick, who was imprisoned for his actions, was kept hush-hush within the high command. They didn't want his ideas to spread to the other clones, who they now realized had the potential to disobey and revolt. Dangerous information they wished to keep as tight a lid on as they could. As for Anakin, Obi-Wan, and the rest of the Jedi, the incident with Slick was worrisome, as before, when the clones had seemed more like biological droids, they had proven an effective force against Dooku's Separatists. But Slick had showed that the clones were living, thinking, individual beings, which made the morality of using a clone army questionable. Was Slick a freedom fighter or a traitor? Let me know in the comments. Perhaps both, or not at all. Wherever you fall on that, Slick certainly believed that his betrayal was justified, right or wrong. He made an independent choice and acted on it. And that for me is really what makes Slick one of the more interesting clones out there, because of how his actions raise the question of free will. The story also foreshadows the clone army's future betrayal of the Jedi and all of that, but it also opens up the question as to whether the clones were truly sentient or not. Rex certainly proved his free will when he resisted as much as he could from the inhibitor chip controlling his mind during Order 66 to kill Ahsoka. But that would also be a counter-argument. After all, most clones, including Cody, were unable to resist their chips. Was that due to a lack of free will, or would a non-clone trooper with the inhibitor also be compelled to obey? And if so, why wasn't that a practice that continued in the Stormtrooper Corps? So perhaps there were only a few clones who had true free will. Maybe it slipped through the cracks, or maybe they all had this ability and they just didn't know it, except for those few. Rex being one of them, and Slick as well, of course. Like Slick, maybe these free will clones had a little extra Django in them than the typical trooper. Whatever the answers are, free will or not, I'll end on this. No droid would ever ask itself, can betrayal be an act of love? Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, my fellow Jedi and Sith friends, remember, the Force will be with you always.